Yeah.
well.
You gotta tap into some friends and family who are looking to have some work done and like you enough that they will accept some questionable results occasionally. It's really how you learn.
So you're saying just stick with it and keep building. Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Justin Fink, Editorial Director.
Hey, guys.
Deputy Editor Matt Milham.
Hey.
That's a new role for you, right?
Yeah. A few days old.
Since when?
Since Tuesday.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
It means more
Still
work and
figuring
the
it
same
out.
pay.
Slightly better pay.
All right.
But definitely more work.
Definitely more work.
Yeah.
Better you than me. And producer Jeff Rose.
Hey.
Please email us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. So let's start with some feedback from listeners. This letter comes from Doug. I just watched podcast 180, and as to your comment that cabinets take a lot of room to build, you're right. That's why after we bought the land and took care of the well, septic, and power, the first thing I did was build a 30 by 40 metal building. It is insulated, not enough. It has heat and a 3/4 bath. I knew I was going to need the space to build the house. Besides all the cabinets and the other build-ins, I also had to build 8 interior doors. I based them on an article in issue 192 by Paul Levine.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that one?
I did that article.
Did you?
Yeah.
I bet it's great.
It's a pretty cool technique. Very, very simple.
Laminated, right?
No. He did essentially grooves and floating tenons. So everything is cut with the same operation.
Oh, wow, that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'll have to check that out. My only change was to make them stain grade, so I used clear alder for the frames and naughty alder plywood for the panels. The doors also took a lot of space. The shop also allowed me to keep building through the winter. When I got too cold to sleep in my Coleman camper, I bought a futon and put it in a corner of the shop.
I don't know that that's an improvement. Yeah.
This is my kind of guy. With a small refrigerator, microwave, and toaster oven, it made it a usable, if not quite legal, living space.
I've been talking about this as the way to go for years, that if you're going to build a new house, you
Build a
start with the
garage.
outbuilding.
Yeah.
You live there. You need the space. You need the staging area. You're going to do better finish work.
Because you'll have
It doesn't so much
room.
matter for the framing and those things, but in terms of finishing the house, would you prefer to set up shop in your future living room, or just have have it separate, be able to work in there and heat that space, cool that space,
Yeah.
sleep up in the loft?
Yeah, I think if you got especially a 2-car garage or bigger with a, upstairs, that's...
And don't move in until your house is done, because if you move in, you'll never finish the house.
Mm-hmm.
On the subject, I was over at Andy Engel's house over the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, when did Andy build that house? 1995.
It was the early 90s or mid-90s.
Yeah, still not finished.
Yeah. Unfinished drywall.
Yep.
Yep.
I like the balustrade as my favorite feature, which is like Luan plywood and 2x4s.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's weird things that are finished. Like he's got a beautiful white oak dining room.
Yes, with paneling.
That butts up to like a rough opening with exposed studs.
I love that stuff doesn't bother him.
It's not even really on a to-do list.
It's like it just does not bother him at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his wife is very patient.
Yeah.
Doug says, Fine Home Building was a source for me in many areas of the construction. Besides the doors, a couple of other articles were helpful in building the shower and the master bath. I didn't always follow the very best practice because budget was an issue, and sometimes you have to go with good enough. It was good to know what the best materials were, even if I couldn't afford them. Thanks to you and the team for all the info. Well, thank you, Doug. That was nice. And we heard from Alan from Western Kentucky regarding episode 183. He wrote in to discuss painting brick, you may recall, and he mentioned a product made by Roma Bio, which is mineral-based, and none of us had any familiarity with this.
I would have said Romabio. I'm glad you read it, not me.
So this, I wouldn't have known how to say it either, except I talked to someone who's more familiar with it than me.
Good.
So Travis Allen, who's an estimator with our favorite painter, Hansel Painting in Durham, New Hampshire, explained to me that there are 3.5 ways to actually color brick, and they do all of them virtually.
3.5.
Yeah. So the first way is to use one of these Roma Bio products, which is semi-transparent, and it's a single coat process. And people like it because it kind of has this kind of Mediterranean rustic look. Like you can put the coating on thin in some areas and thick in others, and it kind of gives it this aged appearance. And the photos on the Roma Bio website look fantastic. And that is the least expensive way because it is a one-coat process. And the manufacturer and Travis was unwilling to corroborate this, but he says the manufacturer says that this coating is very much like the coatings they've been using for centuries in parts of Europe. And it's very long-lasting. Because it's mineral-based, it sticks really well to brick, and it's also vapor-permeable. But
What do you mean he wasn't going to corroborate it, though? He disagrees?
because it hasn't been in the marketplace long enough. So I asked him what the longest these projects have been around. The oldest ones he could think of were just several years old.
Okay.
So, and he says they're holding up okay, but several years in the realm of painting is not a long time.
And that stuff, what do you think it is? Just lime wash?
So it's hard to tell from the product data sheets. I tried to figure it out. I don't think it's lime, but I think it's lime-like. Lime has got some toxic qualities, right? It's not. It's corrosive, right?
Well, yeah, it's, what is it? Basic, I believe.
Yeah, it's
So
alkaline.
yeah, I mean, it's alkaline. So I mean, if you had it on your hands for a long period of time, it might be bad. But
Yeah, but we're already using it in mortar and concrete.
Yeah.
Well, but you can get chemical burns from those things. So
yeah, but it also depends on the kind of lime. So
Yeah,
like
sure.
if it's not slaked lime, you could get a burn much more easily than if you're using like hydrated lime, which is what most people are using, I think, for lime washes. I mean, I've had it on my hands for hours and hours, and
Yeah.
it didn't do anything to me.
Do you have it
Yeah.
on your hands right now?
I might. I don't know.
your skin looks
I
kind
mean,
of flaky.
it definitely dried my hands out. I
Yeah.
would say it did that, but it didn't like burn through the skin or anything.
I don't know what to say because, like I said, it hasn't been in the marketplace long enough, and I haven't used it. But
It's a good bet that you should just be wearing a respirator and gloves for everything that we do now.
Yeah.
yeah, because of the particles at a minimum, right?
You never know. In 10 years, they're going to say like, oh yeah, that causes cancer. So
Yeah.
do it.
Right, the gloves cause cancer. That's what
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be in for next.
Right. Yeah.
Travis says the other second method is to use like 2 coatings of this product, which makes a completely opaque finish. So it's a matte, uniform finish. Whites and grays are pretty popular, and he sees increasing the number of these. And the other thing he says, this company has been very successful using social media. So the people who contact him already have some knowledge of these products and are seeking them out because they're one of the they refer people to Hansel Painting.
Oh, okay.
So they can put 2 coats of that on. The third way is to use primer. Locks On is the product they use from Sherwin-Williams, and then 2 coats of acrylic paint. And if you want a gloss finish, he says that's the only way to get it. A lot of people want washability on their exteriors, and he says, so they say immediately I want a high gloss or a semi-gloss finish so we can wash it, until they learn that it costs 3 times as much because you're doing 3 coats instead of 1 coat. And the labor goes way up because of the
You do
painting.
3 coats for it to be.
A coat of primer and 2 coats of paint.
Oh. I thought you meant 3 coats of paint if you're switching to semi-gloss.
No.
Got it.
So most people want that until they figure out what it costs, and then they're fine with the matte finish.
Yeah. Nobody washes anything anyway.
Yeah.
So he was, and then the halfway.
Yeah, I was really waiting for the half.
So is, I believe it's a 1-coat product made by Sherwin-Williams that you put on super thick, like the thickness of truck bed liner, right? And that's kind of a matte finish too. Cool. But they've never used that, and he wasn't sure how that worked. So this came up because we're going to go down there to document this. And there's a lot to know. I had a 20-minute conversation with this guy. And
How are you going to show 3.5 different methods? Some customer's going to have a mismatched house after we're done.
So I thought, and we haven't talked about this editorially, but we would talk about the decision tree in deciding on these products, and then feature one of them and acknowledge that this isn't the only way, that there are other ways.
We could also get some other photos of projects, I'm sure, that have been done one way or the other.
At least finished photos so people can figure out what it looks like.
Yes, sir.
So I was delighted to talk to him, and I learned a whole mess of stuff about painting brick. It's a very common thing there because there's lots of brick construction in North Carolina, and there's some ugly brick.
It's an awesome topic.
Yeah.
We touched it just a little bit for a chimney question one time, not so long back, but we have not done a whole house as far as I know. So that's really interesting to me.
The one plus of the thick coat of Sherwin-Williams product, and forgive me, I don't remember what it's called, but I'll put it up on the podcast page so we can look at that later, is that it's a waterproofing. So if you're having vapor issues, it allegedly completely seals the brick from water, which is a big problem on parapets and stuff like that with water intrusion on masonry
Yeah,
buildings.
unless the water's coming from the backside, then it'll just blow that coating right off. But I guess, yeah.
A lot of people wrote to us about magic erasers.
Oh.
Yeah, what were you guys even talking about? I get these emails from Magic Eraser. I'm like, what were they doing on the
Something
show?
about cleaning Kylie's siding, right? I
Kylie
think?
was cleaning her siding with
Yeah.
magic erasers. And I posed the question, what...
Of course she was.
It's a good thing she has a small house,
Yes.
right? I posed the question, what is it? And apparently everyone knows except me that it is, what is it?
Melamine foam.
It's because everybody Googled it after you said it.
Yes, Ben Bogey writes, he was among our respondents who said, magic erasers are melamine foam. Yep, same melamine compound as the ubiquitous flakeboard coating. He's a great writer, right? It's a mild abrasive. Don't use it on glossy finishes. If you hit the search and look for melamine foam sponges, you can get large bricks of them for less than the cost of one of the name brand option. I use them a bunch at the end of large projects to clean up fingerprints and related construction grime.
They are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You've used this product? Mm-hmm. Seems like that's something I got to put in my inventory.
But I would buy what he's talking about because they're not super cheap and they wear away. That's how they work.
Do they have any cleaning product in them, or is it just the
Not as far as
foam?
I know. I think you
Interesting.
just wet them and that's kind of creates the slurry.
Yeah.
Very
It's
good.
been my experience.
Yeah. They are pretty magical though.
Well, clearly. So let's talk about the home projects. What have you been doing at home, Justin? Have you been working on your garage addition at all?
So the wife and I went to go see a 1790 farmhouse on Tuesday, so a couple days ago. We were not looking to move, but this thing kind of popped up.
Can you describe the style? It's an
1790. So it's a salt box.
Oh, cool.
And it's on a lot of acreage. It's very gorgeous. So that was what lured us in to take a look. Like,
Can I ask the selling price?
$300,000.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad for our area for that much
yeah.
land.
So why is it only $300,000?
Well, because it's a 1790s farmhouse. I mean, and I will say after looking at it that it is in gorgeous shape for a 1790 farmhouse. But
It's still
that's still a 1790 farm. So I mean, you have all of the usual problems of support posts in the basement that are just resting on concrete. I mean, somebody did pour a rat slab, but then you have wooden posts sitting right on it, and the basement's wet, so those are shot.
Yep.
The sills are all getting ready to be shot. There's a couple of punky beams. Everything seemed pretty straight, miraculously. The wood roof had been retouched. One of the sides of the house had been reshingled.
It had a cedar shingle roof?
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. And it
Cool.
looked like the front was either really well cleaned or they redid it, which blew my mind because that is not a cheap way to go.
No, tens of thousands.
But at the end of the day, it just felt like I don't really want to live in this house. Like I felt like I was talking myself into it for the land.
Yeah.
Because it has a horse barn and a detached garage and then a lot of pastures. I was like, I need to be here in
You're
my
going to have
life.
to buy a gator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can't survey. I can't ride the fences.
No,
Yeah.
you got to.
Without a gator.
Right.
Is she a horse girl?
No.
So you're gonna
Come
have to
on, Matt.
gonna turn into one?
No. There'll be no horse girls.
Just think how many motorcycles you could park in that barn.
I know.
Yeah.
How many classic cars you could be restoring?
Dude.
Except you'd have no money to do anything but work on the
And
house.
you'd have no time because you'd be working on the house constantly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the real disappointment was both bathrooms needed to be redone and the kitchen was a wreck. So it's like right out of the gate, you're broke.
Sure.
And then I was saying to our art director this morning, we went back home after seeing it and was just walking up the back porch and I was like,
this is
this
pretty
feeling
nice.
of like this is nice. I don't need to do
Finished.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's looking pretty good staying where I'm at. But I wanted to tell you guys that yesterday I got a saw stop finally.
Ooh.
So last night I was setting it up, and
You bought a cabinet saw or a job site saw?
No, the 3 horsepower cabinet saw.
Ooh.
I've been coveting this saw for many years, as you all know, and finally pulled the trigger on it. And I am blown away by, and everybody says this, but I'm blown away by the quality of this thing when you're putting it together.
Yeah.
Like, it is just, I was trying to describe it. It's like that feeling when you close one of those super insulated doors to a passive house.
Or the door on a Mercedes.
Or the door on like an old pickup truck. Like you close it and you go, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't feel like everything else. That's what everything on this tool is like. And so immediately no regrets in spending the money on it. It's not fully set up yet, but I'm excited to.
So did
put
you
it
have to
through
go
its
pick
paces.
that up from the tool dealer, or did they bring it to you?
So I ordered it on Amazon. I always hunt. Amazon, for people who don't know, has Amazon Warehouse,
Yeah.
which gives you like the repackaged
Sure,
deal.
sure.
So I'm always hunting on there, waiting for the right deal. One finally comes up, and it's like $600 less than the regular price. So I'm like, done, buy
Yeah.
it. So they tell me the delivery's coming yesterday. So the guy shows up, pulls up, and parks in the street, and he's got the box truck. And I'm like, you want to back into the driveway? And he goes, no, this will be easy to unload. And I'm going, what? So he walks out with just the rails. And I goes like, well, where's the rest? He goes, this is all we have. I'm like, oh God. So then after all the phone calls to figure out what happened, they can't find the other 3 boxes that go with this thing. So the guy goes, sorry, we're just gonna have to refund your money. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do with these rails? And he goes, you can just keep them. I was like, what the hell am I gonna do with these? All right, whatever. So I'm at this point, I'm already like mentally psyched that I'm getting this saw. I'm like, all right, screw it, I'm just gonna buy it locally. So I call up a local tool shop, and it's Coastal Tools. I know you can get their tools online, but there's one 20 minutes from my house, or the one 20 minutes from my house. So I call up, and the guy, talking to the owner, and he's like, he goes, yeah, we got it in stock. And I was telling him the story, and he goes, I'll tell you what, why don't you just keep the 52-inch rails, or whatever they're 50-inch rails, I don't remember.
This is for the rip fence. The rails for the rip.
For the extension table to the right of the fence. The fence is the same. He goes, why don't you keep that? I'll throw it. You'll pay for a 36-inch job. Keep the 52. I'll throw in the 52-inch table, blah, 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 and then I'll cut you a deal on the price. So he like subtracted money from it because I already had these rails. So I saved money that way. And I went there and I loaded it up, and they put it on the truck with a forklift. And the guy goes, as he's closing the gate of the truck, he goes, have fun not cutting off your fingers. That was like the closing. I was like, it doesn't get much better than that one phrase summary of the entire joy of owning a saw stop. So I brought it home.
How'd you get it off the truck?
Well, I have that engine hoist, my Harbor Freight engine hoist that I use for everything. So I just it was still on a pallet, so I just hoisted it off the truck, and then
Nice.
I slid it into the shop on dollies and
So you put chains through the pallet?
lifting straps. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you put a hot dog through it yet?
I have not, because you know how much those
Cartridges are $100,
cartridges and
right?
blades cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really want to test it on your finger, though?
I'm not going to test it. You know how I test it? I put my finger on the blade when it's not running, and it shows a
Turns
little
red.
blinking red light.
Yeah.
There you
I go, okay, it works. So that's what I'm doing.
So is this part of a larger shop remodel? Or?
No, it's just I had sold my other table saw, and I've been using a job site saw for the last several months in anticipation of upgrading.
Sure.
So I wanted to sell the old one, get it out of the way.
You wanted to be miserable using your job site saw before you
really let it sink
Yeah.
in, yeah.
Then you felt better about spending $2,000 on a table saw.
Yes, more than $2,000, by the way. But I do have a really sweet built-in project coming up. I will talk more about that in a future show.
Give us a taste.
It's dining room built-ins, and it's gonna go on either side of an opening and across the top.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A window opening.
No, door.
Neat.
Cool.
So I've finally went back to working on the bedroom. We'll get to your garden shed here in a minute.
Nobody cares
No
about you,
need.
Matt.
So this past weekend, we had a holiday weekend, and Carol and I moved out of our bedroom and set up a temporary one in the barn. And that's fine, excepting when you have to pee in the middle of the night, you have to go in the house. But other than that, it's been super nice. It's
No,
quiet.
you don't.
Yeah. Have you heard of buckets?
You heard of the yard?
I don't want my neighbors to know I do that, so I'm withholding comment. But anyway, so in the bedroom, got all the stuff out of there, and the big motivator of this project is the disgusting carpet that I ripped all out, and there's oak flooring under it, and I found it's not in terrible shape, excepting that some knucklehead carpenter was cutting panel products on it and like curved into.
That's the exact same thing I had in my kitchen.
I'm just like, how can you be such an imbecile? But they didn't do it in one spot. It's like in 3 spots. So what I decided I'm going to do, the original plan was to put the luxury vinyl plank stuff. And Carol and I both kind of decided this was an okay answer, but it wasn't what we really wanted. So we bought the stuff. It's sitting in the barn. And last night we decided that we're going to return it, and I'm going to try and restore this floor. I don't know how I get myself into these things, but what I'm going to do is cut out the floor section that's going to go under our new platform bed with storage underneath, and I'm going to use that to patch the damaged areas.
Because it looks like you got some plywood in a couple of areas.
I do.
Any idea why?
Because someone stole plywood or flooring from there to patch other areas of the house.
Gotcha. So you're going to steal some more.
So, well, I'm going to steal it from under the bed and move it to where they stole it from. Yeah. So I spent hours scraping the, I think it's asphalt residue from some kind of sheet flooring that was on this floor at one point. And I started doing this with a paint scraper, and it was going really slow. And then I remembered there were carbide scrapers in the photo studio from your window restoration or your window restoration piece. They work great on this asphalt.
I would just pour some diesel fuel on there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was equivalent to running a 10K, but I have never been so sore and tired in my many years. I'll say.
Yeah, those arm muscles they get easily sore.
It was
found
exhausting.
Yeah,
and I didn't take a lot of breaks. I just wanted to be done with it. So I finished it, and then I had to go on a photo shoot to rest up.
Did you consider at any point, for instance, the entire time that you were doing it, how could I just get away with getting like a rough grit sandpaper on the flooring sander and just burn through some paper to get rid of it?
So I think that's what they probably did to restore the rest of the floor, because this condition was elsewhere in the house that they had to resolve before we moved in. And I think that's what they did. I just think it would destroy sandpaper. I think it would clog it up immediately.
It would, yeah. It's not a great way. So this was it was tar paper that had a vapor barrier or something?
I think it was linoleum style, sheet flooring with an asphaltic adhesive.
That's nasty.
It was terrible.
That stuff's really hard.
And I'm sure it's probably laced with asbestos fibers.
Oh, yeah.
So I did wear a respirator, and I did create I put a fan in the window and taped around it to get air blowing out to prevent the particles from spreading throughout the rest of the house.
Where was Carol?
She was spreading mulch, I'm pretty sure.
That seems like the nice end of that deal.
Yeah.
I don't know which is worse. She's been spreading mulch a lot longer than I spent scraping the floor.
Well, yeah, no kidding. That's because she knows that when she's done, she has to
drag that out, moving it one strand at a time.
So I think this weekend I'm going to start cutting the flooring out and patching. So
why not just get some new flooring since you're going to refinish it anyway? It's like $60, right?
So
you're never going to get it to look the same.
I love the patina of this floor now, right? It looks pretty cool. We're talking about clear finishing it, and somebody would pay extra for the kind of loft look, right?
Mm-hmm. And it immediately allows you to have saw marks in it, and it sort of doesn't matter
I kind of think that's where we're going with it. You know, it's like this is just what it is. It's part of the decoration.
Right. And it's really, when you're replacing floorboards, I mean, if you're going for an authentic look, it really comes down to the year that the house was built, the way that the boards were cut, the tightness of the grain.
Yeah.
You can't just go oak is oak.
It does not look the same.
That's why it's so appealing to borrow from the house that you're already in, because it's from the same batch, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And this, is nothing really special. It's not quarter sawn or anything, but it definitely looks better than the stuff I've seen at the home center recently, which is mostly flat sawn, and it looks crappy.
Yeah, Matt.
Well, the stuff I got...
It's a good question.
We just got it, I think, at one of the box stores.
It's probably because you already had box store flooring to start with.
Well, yeah. Well, the house was built in the 50s, so, it was whatever that was. But it was all plain sawn, the stuff that was already there. And the new stuff actually looked better than the old stuff, and still does.
Interesting.
It's in. Yeah. But the old stuff was reverse cupped.
Really?
Yeah. And
so it was arched?
It was arched. Yeah. So
wow, that means it's taking water or moisture on from the living space, which is odd.
Right. And so I had to sand the high spots down to try to flatten it out so it didn't look, basically just like a bunch of
weird.
I don't know, upside down waves.
How did you sand? Because I'm going to be into
I
this.
started at 24, I think.
On a belt sander.
No, because I've never used a belt sander.
That's
I never
what I'm
used the
scared
other
that-
one either, but I
Floor
went
sander?
talking to Brian Pontalillo about it. Yeah.
So you rented the like 4-head orbital from the home
3-head.
center?
Yeah,
3-head. Okay.
And I mean, the pads are not that expensive. I probably went through about
They're like the
30 or 40
6-inch
of them.
ones.
Yeah, 6-inch.
Yeah.
3. So you're going through 3 6-inch pads at a time, and they're
I've
not
heard it's
really that
slow.
much.
It's
Is it-
very.
It was very slow. Mostly in the beginning, it seemed like I was going so fast, starting at 24. But then once you start to get through the meat of that hump,
Yeah, then you're sanding the whole board.
then you're sanding the whole board,
Yeah.
and it just gets longer and longer and longer.
That's how they're able to give you that floor sander as a do-it-yourself item because it's so not aggressive.
it's innocuous. You're not
Yeah.
going to destroy something.
I mean, you could rent a real
Drum
floor
sander.
sander. Yeah, drum sander, and you haul through it. But
I don't know what I'm
Leave
doing.
all kinds
I
of
don't have
yards.
any idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you did some work with Brent Koloski recently, the floor
Yes.
guy, and I was out there when he was doing a floor refinish, and watching those guys work, it's like I can't believe how long it takes, even
Them to
for
do
the
it.
pros to do it.
Yes.
And how careful and how much they reiterated, like, you can't just wing this because it will get screwed up and look terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
because I definitely want to skip grits. I want to go fast. You know, it's miserable.
It's miserable, slow work, and you just have to suck it up.
Put on a good podcast. You know, maybe Fine Homebuilding podcast. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Go through a lot of them.
I'll start at the beginning.
Go through the whole
Started
the whole
episode
collection.
one.
Yeah.
And your shed looks like it's making headway.
It's making progress. It's even farther along than these pictures, but yeah, that was
Whoa.
kind of where it was. And still waiting on the panels for the.
That might be the cutest shed ever.
Still waiting on the panels for that. Sort
You're
of
still waiting
greenhouse
for your
side.
roofing.
Yeah,
What the heck?
I don't know. They said it was going to take 2 weeks, and we're at close to 4, and no word yet. But
Look at you.
yeah,
What's the deal with that window?
that? Well, I went to a.
We should
basically
tell
a
people. So
salvage yard.
it looks like there's sash, but no glass in it, right?
Yeah, and there's no that's just the trim, and it's just up there temporarily because
Okay.
that is going to stay just cedar, and the rest of it's going to get painted black, and the trim for the window and the doors is going to be like this weird green.
Cool.
And so anyway, that's because they're temporarily, so I can pull it down, so I can spray the rest of it because I don't want to sit out there with a brush and.
So
paint
you
all that.
mocked up what the window will be like with casing, so you could side, and then you're
Yeah.
going to swap the mock-up for the real window.
Yeah, you can actually see through the window, one of the windows just kind of like leaning up there. They were like old, I don't know, like kind of casements, and they were installed like that,
Upright.
upright. And I was like, yeah, I'll
Turn 'em
stick these
sideways.
in my semi-greenhouse.
So there really will be what looks like so it's a roughly square window, but it has a
Center mullion.
center mullion
Yeah,
going
there's
horizontally.
actually, yeah, because there's 2 windows. They're each about, I don't know, they're 58 inches tall and about 14 inches wide when they were originally installed vertically, and I'm just laying them on the side.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got funkier taste than I thought you did.
Well, I have cheap taste. Those windows were like $15 a piece.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Well, we're going
Looking
to talk
good.
more about your shed in a little bit with a siding question, right?
Yeah.
And you have something to share about a new series that Fine Homebuilding is doing.
Yes, Jeff, can you drop in a nice announcement sound effect here? So we have just gone into pre-registration for an event that will be happening October 2nd through 4th in Southbridge, Massachusetts. We're calling it the Fine Homebuilding Summit. And this is going to be one of the coolest things that we have ever done. I essentially planned this thing. I picked 12 speakers that I would like to sit and listen to. We've got Martin Holliday, Glenn Matheson, Chris Corson, Peter Yost, Jordan Goldman, Ben Bogey, Mike Maines, Mike Gurton, Christine Williamson. I mean, Brent Hall. It's a crazy lineup. Jake Bruton. Who did I forget? Steve Basic.
These folks have never been in the same space at the same.
No, it's an insane lineup. And we only have a little less than 250 seats for this thing. So we announced it as a pre-registration, so anybody can go to the website. I believe you can just go to finehomebuilding.com and it's on the homepage.
We'll put a link on the podcast page.
Yes, that's a good way to do it too. So we set up a pre-registration because we wanted people to be able to come and click to make sure that they're in the loop for additional information so that as soon as they go on sale, which is going to be pretty soon, They will get notified and have a chance to buy a ticket. It's going to be a 2.5-day event, and it's going to be deep and intensive, and we're going to be hearing a lot about cutting-edge building. So it'll be a lot of energy efficiency, a lot of progressive techniques, a lot of working with new materials that people might not be familiar with, as well as some kind of really core topics, like Glenn presenting on everything you need to know about navigating the building code and what's coming up in the codes, and Brent Hull talking about the history of houses and the styles and kind of why we build the way we do, and Peter Yost will be doing kind of the fundamentals of building science, which is,
everyone needs.
Well, not only that, but that topic presented by that guy is the best version of that you can get anywhere. We'll be talking, it'll be a good mix of hands-on, some live demos like you might find at a trade show, and then a lot of seminar-type, classroom-style stuff. We're definitely going to have some fun. We're going to be doing some podcasts from there, interviewing some people. There will be happy hours. There will be banquet dinners. There will be a lot of time for networking.
What's the venue like?
It's an old factory.
Oh, cool.
Converted into a conference center, and it's really, really nice. It's a very cool it's definitely fitting.
Cool.
It looks like us.
Cool.
So I encourage you to check out finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Look for that link. Click that button so that you get to stay in the loop, and we will keep everybody posted on more details as they develop.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait for that.
I am so excited. So we're about, 4 months away now? Can't come soon enough.
Yeah.
That's going to be cool. Should we take some questions now?
I guess.
Christian from Baltimore writes, in 2017, I purchased a historic home built in 1840. Unfortunately, during a cold snap in 2018, several pipes burst, causing water damage to existing plaster walls, trims, and floors. It also damaged knob and tube, electric, and disturbed lots of asbestos.
Ooh.
We're going to be renovating the home and gutting it to its studs, saving trim, railings, and anything we can preserve the original structure. All the plumbing, wiring, and mechanical systems are going to be replaced. So he says down to the studs, but in reality, the home is brick with 3 Ys on the ground floor and 2 on the second and third floors. Most interior walls are wooden lath installed directly on the salmon brick, covered with horsehair plaster. There is no insulation to speak of, and the basement has a concrete slab floor.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want to pause right here?
Let's go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. The interior walls are wooden lath installed directly on the brick walls?
Yeah, so I've seen this too. It's often secured with masonry nails, or sometimes they actually put little wood pieces into the masonry to attach the lath to.
So we're talking about, it's a structural brick house.
It's a brick house with plaster on the inside.
So they framed stud walls inside to hold plaster, essentially.
Well, lath.
Well,
I don't think there's no studs.
Yeah,
except they're on the interior walls.
Was I just looking at the wrong photo, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong photo.
Yeah.
Jeff teased me.
I think that's for our last question, or second to last is the one that's in there. So we don't have any photos of this.
Now I'm caught up.
You're caught up. Okay, so he says our energy bill during the winter, including gas and electric, is over $750 a month.
Yikes.
Jeebus.
We are considering removing the radiators, boiler, and replacing them with ductless mini-split systems for both heating and cooling. We're considering replacing the gas water heater with a hot water on-demand system. We're also considering furring out the interior walls so we can insulate. Our home is about 12 feet wide, wall-to-wall, so space comes at a premium. Our plan is to use 2x4 studs, run perpendicular to the brick walls in most areas, and 2x4 studs installed parallel to the brick in areas where space is extremely tight. So what I think he's saying is we're going to put them flat where it's super tight and put them more conventionally where he has room.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So he's saying you're only going to have room for 1.5 inches or 3.5 of insulation, depending on which way they go.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we were considering using cellular foam. However, I just read on your website that you do not recommend this. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. We recommend foam in some instances, but the big problem with closed-cell foam is the global warming potential. But there are foams that solve that to a degree now, but they are more expensive, and not everyone is on board with regard to installing it. I like the idea of how foam seals the penetrations, especially where the floor joists, which are pocketed into the interior brick walls and at the eaves of our roof. So, like a lot of masonry homes, the floor system is let into little pockets into the masonry, and that's going to be important in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
There are local codes with regards to historical preservation that restrict us for modifying the exterior of the home in most cases, including replacement of windows and doors. We will be replacing them, but they have to be wooden variants in most cases.
Right. Good.
Whoa, now to the questions.
I'm on the side of the historical board.
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
You want vinyl?
I'm going to steal from John Hodgman. Nostalgia is a toxic impulse.
Wow.
To me, it's absurd because you couldn't even build this house today if you wanted to.
Because it's not code compliant.
Because it's not code compliant. And they won't let you do things that would bring it up to the standard.
You must
that
agree
exists
that
today.
there are things you can do to a historic house to really screw up a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not saying that you can't screw it up and make it look like garbage, like with some things.
You're saying you should be allowed to do that.
Well, I mean, if it's your house.
But they're not saying that you can't use. I mean, maybe they are, but it doesn't sound like they're not saying you can't use like an Ultrex fiberglass window that looks like the original window.
Well, what I'm more concerned about is like the best solution for this kind of thing would be to insulate on the outside and then put something over that. And they're basically probably precluded from doing that.
But they're not saying one way or the other that they don't like the brick, are they?
No,
They just want to make their house more efficient.
Yeah.
Right, by covering all the brick, though? I mean, that's the house.
Yeah.
So the preferred way to insulate a masonry structure is to put the insulation on the outside, because masonry structures sometimes, especially in very cold places, have problems with moisture causing spalling in the wintertime, because ordinarily, if the wall is uninsulated, it can dry to a much greater degree than it can if it's insulated on the inside. It stays cool, which means it stays wet, which means when it gets very cold, the water in the brick freezes, expands, and makes it spall, makes the brick break down.
Yeah. And the framing that is let into those notches in the brick is going to get wet and rot there.
Because it, too, stays cold.
Yeah.
And Matt has identified the problem with insulating a masonry structure on the inside.
On the inside, yeah. That's what happens if you do it on the inside.
So you dig?
I dig. I just, yes, go ahead.
So you can't insulate this on the outside.
Right.
Because of the historic considerations, right? And I'm with Justin. I think it would be a crime to take a historic brick structure and put insulation and synthetic stucco on the outside.
Yeah.
Even if that is the best thing for the building.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, I love the look of these old houses and stuff, but the fact that like they prevent you from doing the right thing just for the looks of it, is a little bit absurd to me.
I think that's a question for the Historical Commission.
Hysterical Commission.
I think there's solutions for insulating this on the inside. Typically, and obviously this varies. Typically, the historic commissions are most focused on the front facade of the house, if I'm right. I might be wrong about that.
Probably.
Yeah.
So that's why when a lot of people do deep energy retrofits on old houses, they might be able to put foam all along the outside of the house, but for that front-facing wall, they have to figure out an interior plan.
Wow, I've never seen anyone
it.
do interior and exterior. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's also one approach. You could encapsulate the entire exterior of this house on most of it, except you just have to change your plan for the front, which doesn't seem. Listen, you bought this house. You're in a historic district,
Right?
You didn't get bamboozled.
Right. You bought the problem.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit to an article that I really like on GBA called Insulating Old Brick Buildings, Appropriate Enough, written by Martin. And I'm going to jump...
Appearing at the summit, October 2nd through 4th.
I'm going to get right to the point of Martin's synopsis here. Okay, so most but not all existing brick buildings can be safely insulated on the interior. The colder the climate, the greater the risk of freeze-thaw damage. He's in Baltimore, not really that cold of a place. It's a pretty moderate climate, actually, I would describe it. He says the thicker the insulation, the greater the risk of freeze-thaw damage. Makes sense. It stays colder. The more rain that falls on the wall, the greater the risk of freeze-thaw damage. So if you have good overhangs or other architectural elements that keep the rain off the building, that's a good thing. Some bricks are more vulnerable to freeze-thaw damage than others. There are tests to determine whether your building has good bricks or bad bricks, says Martin. If you insulate the interior of a brick building, the ends of joists and beams that are embedded in the exterior walls can rot, which is your concern.
Yeah.
I'd say that's less of a concern if they're going to air condition this building, right? Because where's the moisture going to come from if they're conditioning it year round?
You need to keep a tight grip on
Your interior humidity
with this approach. Yeah. And by the way, spray foam applied to the inside of this structure against the brick would be fine.
It's a good way to go.
It's a good way to go. And I know that a lot of people throw around spray foam as like the ultimate solution for everything. Mm-hmm. You can do this another way, but in this case, spray foam is a particularly handy tool to have at your disposal.
Yeah.
Martin sums it up by saying, if all of this sounds complicated and confusing, you might want to hire a consultant to help you determine the best way to proceed.
Yeah.
And I would question whether insulating this brick building is really the best way to proceed anyway. I would want an energy audit that looks at if there are thermal bypasses or air leakage issues, and get a baseline of ways to improve the house without doing this very costly and potentially damaging insulating approach.
The thermal bypass is every wall, every exterior wall.
Yeah. So that's what the insulation is solving. Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind if you're going the interior rigid foam route, and this might not be as much of an issue with brick depending on how the brick was made. People often advise against that route. We're setting aside the global warming potential thing. I'm talking about material application here. It's hard to get a good solid contact between the face of the rigid foam and the interior face of the masonry. Mm-hmm. And that
because it's irregular.
Right. And it might not be as much of a problem with brick because it might be pretty well planed out. If you don't get good contact, then you're going to have inconsistent results in problem areas. That's why the spray foam is such an appealing option.
Because it goes everywhere.
Right. It will fill every nook and cranny.
Yeah,
it will block moisture.
Yeah, you're going to have a really hard time detailing those seams on rigid foam, and then any water, any vapor, any air that gets through those seams is going to condense on that cold brick.
Right.
And rot your joist ends.
The joist ends is the real problem.
Yeah, totally. So the way to solve the joist end problem is, though, if you're building stud walls on the interior, you cut them off and you use the walls to carry the load instead of the brick pockets.
And would you just so obviously you would support with the new walls, but would you cut them off and provide a gap between the end of the joist and the wall?
Ideally.
Yeah, because you don't want
wicking.
You don't want wicking. Yeah.
And I don't know if you're going to make what amounts to new bearing walls on the inside, you have to use wood framing. But if you're going to leave the joist in the pockets, then I would think this would be a great application for steel studs, and rigid foam behind them.
Why steel studs?
Because you can get them in much narrower profiles than you can wood framing, right? It's either 3.5 or 1.5, depending on how you turn it. Mm-hmm. Whereas you can get steel studs that are 1.5 inches square, or maybe even thinner. Maybe you could use resilient channel to fasten the sheetrock too. So something to think about.
Pay attention to those load paths too when you have those beams, because now you got to go down. You're gonna have to have a new footing in the basement. Footings.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah,
and like I said, I would first hire someone to do a really good energy audit and to figure out what your budget is. Like maybe you just don't have enough money to do all this work, and you should figure that out now and figure out what else the house needs before you decide to go down this path.
Boy, it sure seems like $750 a month though that you're. In terms of payback, you've got a lot of wiggle room to spend a lot of money here and still be okay.
Yeah. Yes. So
if you cut that in half, you're going to pay back pretty quick.
He's got a couple other questions here. We'll touch on them quickly here. We don't want to get bogged down in this, but do you think ductless mini splits would be a good HVAC solution for both heating and cooling? Yes. Considering electric floor radiant heat for bathrooms, it's a nice feature. Is it really going to heat? No. It's a comfort thing.
Yeah, that's a comfort thing. Yeah,
that's fine.
Radiant floor, hydronic radiant floor would be a possibility.
They're trying to get rid of the boiler, right? They want to heat with cool with mini splits.
But why? Because of the perceived higher efficiency of mini splits? Not perceived, but I mean, this is an old house.
Yeah.
Mini splits are often rolled out as an option when your house is ultra tight.
Yes, but you just need more of them when you have an old house.
Yes.
And it's expensive, right? It's not an inexpensive heating system.
They're not saving you a ton of money. They're just part of the reason why they're so popular in high efficiency buildings is because they don't make a lot of heating options that are for really
Low
low
load.
load buildings.
True.
So people go, well, we'll use mini splits. And then that has sort of crept into people thinking that mini splits are going to save them a ton of money on their heating and cooling. Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's still, the envelope still matters.
Right.
And the load still matters. So
Right.
you have to tighten it up or decrease the load. Since we're performing a full renovation and budget is always a factor, which green building techniques and products should I prioritize the highest? I think we touched on that. Get an energy audit, and that'll tell you.
Yeah.
Figure out where everything's going.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best solution, I would say.
The only real problem you have here are those joist and beam ends.
Yeah, and
I mean, if you touch nothing, then you would just lose a lot of money every month in your heating bills. But
the building will be fine.
the building would be fine.
One thing that Martin does mention, though, or maybe he doesn't mention it, but other experts that he talks to, is getting the brick tested, possibly. And also just like before you even do that, just sort of walk around and look at the condition of the brick, because not all brick is made the same.
Right.
And some of it may not react very well to insulation on the inside at all. But some of it may be perfectly fine.
I think being in Baltimore helps a lot. It just is not that cold.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
That's a huge help.
Yeah.
And make a good plan for interior moisture management. That is a huge help here.
Yes.
It gets you out of a lot of potential problems.
And if you're air conditioning the house, that's largely solved.
Yes.
Assuming it's not
And as long as you're-
amazingly oversized.
Well, and as long as you're keeping it nice and dry in the winter, too. You're not,
right.
if you have poor ventilation, and I mean, a shower might ruin your day.
Right. Or if you have your, hundreds of gallons of fish tanks.
Yeah.
Right, or you're drying lumber in the living room or something.
But you're still getting
Stocking
moisture.
cordwood in the basement.
You're still getting moisture into those bricks from the outside too, so you really have to and that's going to get to those beam ends. So
Sure.
you really have
Oh,
to,
yeah.
So you have to watch that as well.
I'm saying that whatever
Yeah.
plan you come up with, interior
Yeah.
humidity control is going to be part of it.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like an interesting project. I hope you guys will keep us apprised of how that's going.
Interesting is one word.
Yeah.
I've had to work on a couple brick houses, and it is a whole different ball
like
game.
Actual load bearing brick. I haven't had to do any of that.
It's kind of a pain.
I mean, I've cut holes in foundations, which is not too much different. But yeah, it's a different.
Different animal.
Yeah.
John from Durham, North Carolina. Do you know John? This is John Carroll's question. John Carroll is our one of our longtime authors.
Yeah. He knows everything about everything, really.
Except this subject.
I guess.
He wrote into a question. Hi, podcast team. I'm getting to replace the 70-year-old yellow pine siding on my house. It is cracked, warped, twisted, and is not capable of holding paint. It will be easy to remove because it has pushed out most of the nails holding it.
I like those jobs.
I'm going to use a man-made lap siding, and I was wondering what your staff and contributors consider the best in terms of holding paint and durability. Right now, I'm leaning towards hardy cement board siding, which I've had good results with, but I'm also interested in what people have to say about Louisiana Pacific Smart Siding, which seems to be sturdier than the hardy siding I'm considering. Thanks in advance for any opinions or information. So I can tell you this is a career highlight to be taking a question from John Carroll instead of asking questions of John Carroll.
Yeah.
I mean, if you asked me this question a year ago, I probably would have said fiber cement. Now I am firm.
Why?
Just because it's inexpensive, seemingly durable. Mostly that for me, it was a good balance of looking like real wood more so than vinyl.
Where have you used this?
Whole house residing projects, yeah.
And did you have any complications related to the material except cutting it is terrible?
It was a pain in the butt to work with.
Yeah.
But it was inexpensive and comes pre-painted and looks pretty good.
And you said all the right things. It's inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's pre-painted.
yeah, pretty much. But if I were to answer the question now, I would be firmly in the camp of LP smart siding.
Wow, what changed?
I believe at the last time we looked at it, LP was even cheaper than, less expensive than fiber cement. And I think it looks better. It doesn't look as kind of, fiber cement has that,
It's
because
very sterile.
the lack of the crisp edges almost makes it look like it got softened and melted a little bit. Everything's just kind of like a little droopy looking.
I don't like how it's so uniformly smooth. I mean, I know you can get the textured stuff, which looks uniformly oddly textured, right?
Yeah,
neither looks real.
The LP you can get both ways. They actually just release smooth.
Yeah. That's what I really wanted, but they didn't have it.
So we should remind folks that's what you've been putting on your shed.
Yeah.
And so what do you think of this stuff?
I like it. I've put it on a couple houses when I before coming here on houses that I'd worked on.
Yeah.
And if you're hand driving nails, it is really tough. If you got a gun, it's fine. But yeah, I would say, and I've worked with fiber cement too. It's easy to cut because it's basically wood. The LP SmartSide.
Okay.
It's like it looks like OSB.
Yeah,
It is
basically
OSB.
a OSB, and the stuff I'm using is I think 7/16 thick. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty
Sturdy.
It's pretty sturdy. So when you make cuts, if you have to cut it and you end up with just like an inch strip or something, there's not really risk of that snapping on you like there is always with hardy. Or
So you're
fiber
talking about
cement.
like you have to make a U-shaped cut to go around a window or door opening,
Yeah,
for example, and you're left with this little piece that's very fragile.
Extremely. It just
Yeah.
kind of flakes with fiber cement.
Yeah, and with LP, I mean it's pretty. You don't really have to worry about it snapping. I mean, you can just hold it in the middle and walk over with like a 10-foot section, and it's not going to snap on you.
What do you think about so your siding has an 8-inch exposure, is that correct?
I think it's 8 inches tall. I've got a 7-inch exposure.
What do you think about that wider exposure? I don't know what John has on his house, but
I don't know. It depends on the house, or it depends on the structure. I don't think it looks fantastic on my shed.
'Cause of
when
scale.
it's painted black, it might be okay. Yeah, just because of the scale is insane. But it goes up so fast when you have an exposure that big.
Right.
Like you're.
I always liked 4 or 5 to the weather.
Yeah.
the look of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
very New Englandy, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted when I went into the store, the big box store, and got this stuff. And they were like, "Oh, we got the 8-inch." I was like, "That's fine," and then ordered the same amount that I was gonna get for the.
They had it in stock there?
They had it in stock.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that.
This
Yeah.
was Lowe's, right?
Yeah, it was Lowe's.
Interesting.
Yep.
And what did it
didn't
cost?
They didn't know they had it. Like they had to dig
course.
through the back, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we do have it."
I love that.
I think it was under $6 a piece, 12 foot. So,
Yeah.
So
I'm
eight by 8 inches wide, 12 inches long, $6. So
Yeah,
50 cents a
So
foot.
It might not be cheaper than fiber cement, but it's right along the same lines.
right along there. I mean, I'm siding this whole thing for under $200.
Yeah.
Any weirdness with working with it? Are you supposed to like prime the cut ends and stuff?
I do.
Yeah, sure.
I would definitely prime everything.
It's not primed on the backside, though.
It's
so.
not primed on the backside, which is a little weird to me. But you're supposed to gap all butt joints like 3/16 of an inch,
And then caulk them?
and then either caulk them, or they have these little like profiles that you can stick between, like
That
these
looks
little
horrible.
moldings.
It does look
yeah,
awful.
I don't,
That looks
I don't want
horrible.
to do that. You can. I think you can get away with that if it's pre-finished. Then you can just basically put your 4-inch flashing behind it. It
So did you-
basically just has to extend
you
2
buy
inches
the-
on either side.
Plastic bare flash, I think that's what it's called. It's like,
Yeah, I forget the name of it. It's got a bear in it. I know that. They're like little sheets.
but it looks like a pack of Post-its, right? Except
Yes.
it's vinyl flashing and you put it
Yeah.
on the butt joints.
Yeah, you can do that. I did not do that.
Okay.
Little strips of.
I butted it tight. I'm not following manufacturer instructions on this. Actually, for the most part, I've only got two joints like that in the entire building.
Because it's so small.
Because my longest wall is 12 foot. It's just under 12 feet actually. So I just put up full
Boards.
pieces. Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't even have to. The two butt joints I had, I was just being cheap.
You were
could've
just economizing material.
Yeah. And
Even
then
though you had an extra 33%.
I think I have about an extra.
You got a
20
rain screen
boards.
under this thing?
No.
Matt.
It's
a shed.
plywood on the inside.
Yeah, it's plywood on the inside, and it's not getting filled with anything. It's not going to be finished on the inside at all. You're going to get stabbed with nails.
It'll rot out in a day.
When someone
I
converts
hope
it
so.
to
I
a,
can build another one.
You hate it?
No, I don't think it's the most attractive building. Hopefully,
Did you
once it's-
design it?
I kind of designed as I went, so there wasn't really a lot of designing. I went to the salvage yard one day and found some windows, and then I designed around those. And the same with the doors. That's why the doors are different heights.
This is kind of like a hand tool, shed, garden tool, and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And clearly, you're not pulling a lawnmower into that, or a riding mower anyway.
No, nope.
it would have to be very little. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's helpful to Mr. Carroll, but both products seem to be great, right? I haven't heard any complaints either way.
The LP product, one of the things they tout is how resistant to damage it is. Like they beat the crap out of it.
That's the thing they always do at the trade show with a hammer demonstration, right?
They hit it with sledgehammers. They shoot like a pitching machine, baseballs at it like full speed.
Yeah.
Like it looks the same after everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
And I will say on the sort of the front corner on the side of the door there, when it was getting dark and I was just trying to go fast, and I put the siding up and stepped back, and I realized it was off by like an inch from the other wall. Like the exposure
reveal.
the reveal didn't match up. I was like, dang it. So I went and I ripped it all down, and I could just kind of, pry underneath those things and yank them off, and the nails came out and everything. And
fiber cement would be destroyed.
Fiber cement would be absolutely destroyed doing that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to fix mistakes.
That's
all that counts.
Yep.
Fixing siding is that sometimes you need to, and that would seem an advantage to me.
Yes.
Kane from the Pacific Northwest writes, we have a 1920s craftsman home that we're currently updating. When I pulled down the drywall in a few rooms, I see most of the sheathing is horizontal shiplap style boards. Is it correct that these provide less shear strength than diagonal planks or modern sheathing? And is it worth strengthening the walls in any way while we have them open? I'm guessing it isn't a major priority, but I would have hate to get it all insulated and sealed back up and find out about easy steps we could have taken. Some of the walls in the older section of the house also have shiplap on the interior side, almost an inch thick, which had been wallpapered directly over.
Really?
I've seen that. If I don't put the interior shiplap back up and just drywall directly on there, I'm wondering if I'm taking even more strength away from an old wall. I guess I'm not sure if it was adding much strength in the first place, and curious to hear what you would do. For additional context, we're trying to avoid removing exterior siding. The home is one story with a crawl space, so the walls aren't supporting a second story or anything. Thank you all. The house has plenty of other quirks, and I expect to have some other questions before this project is through. Well, thank you, Kane. What do you guys think?
I wouldn't touch it.
Still there. He's got cut-in bracing on that one wall anyway.
Yeah, there is lead-in bracing there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, assuming that these are, the horizontal shiplap boards have at least 2 nails at each stud location, then that's the nails are providing the shear, but it's not going to be likely to rack. I don't know that the diagonal would make that much more of a difference, because at the end of the day, you're still just relying on the nails. You think it would?
I think it would.
It would.
Yeah, code allows you to install, like you can
1
still
by
do
4.
this. Yeah, well, and other sizes too. I think they do 1 by 6, 1 by 8, something like that now. 3/4 inch minimum. One nominal. But yeah, it gives provisions for installing it.
We should explain to
diagonally.
folks what that is. So lead-in bracing is usually on the interior side of the wall. There's notches cut that receive a diagonal 1x4 that's let into the wall plane.
Yeah, you're talking about lead-in bracing.
Yes.
And I think what they have here is cut-in bracing, which
So
is basically
which are
just
blocks.
pieces, blocks
Yeah.
that are installed diagonally from the plate to plate.
So that would be relatively easy. Even easier are a number of products offered by Strong Tie, Simpson Strong Tie. They make metal bracing, which in some cases is just metal straps. You nail it up on the wall in an X fashion, and then you drywall over it.
Right.
Some of them you put in a saw kerf. You use the bracing itself as a path to guide your saw, and then you nail this in. These products are not meant to be a replacement for real bracing. They're more as a add-on or temporary, but I think it would be an easy way to boost the racking resistance of this wall, and they are in seismically active area.
Oh, they are? Okay.
They're in the Pacific Northwest. So I checked the seismic map on the IRC today, and like all of it is in a relatively active zone. So
Right.
I didn't even need to ask where they were from because it doesn't
I
matter.
would be really tempted to go the metal strapping route, just because you could insulate and then put it right across the studs and then go about your business.
Yep. And it can't hurt.
No, that's a pretty inexpensive way to go.
I'll put the link to the various Simpson products on the podcast page so you guys can check that out. And I think I said that would be an easy upgrade.
You might have convinced me to do something
It's just so easy.
because of the location.
Where it is.
I don't know if I would touch it if it was here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we got time for one more. What do you think, Jeff?
If it's quick, yep.
Dave from Oakland, California writes, about 9 months ago, I left a career as a data analyst. Can't imagine why you'd do that. To pursue a lifelong passion in carpentry at age 30. I'm in this to learn as much and as fast as possible, so I decided to join a small residential remodeling company, which has 5 carpenters here in San Francisco Bay Area. I tried taking a class at a local community college, but there aren't great options around here for that. I quickly turned to your website as a way to speed up my education and make up for lost time. I've been listening to the podcast regularly when work allows to glean what I can as well. My question is, what would you recommend to someone in my position who wants to be a builder and accelerate his learning as much as possible, but is frustrated by the best option available being the slow and steady, learn by osmosis path of an informal apprenticeship? I'm not sure if my end goal is to break off, get my license, and start a design-build firm, or to do this long enough to learn a ton and be a skilled amateur that does side projects on the weekend. But the low wages, lack of benefits, and lack of emphasis on accelerated learning and professional development can be frustrating for an impatient guy like myself. In light of your discussions about getting people into the skilled trades and the Keep Craft Alive effort, I thought you all might have an interesting take on the barriers to entering the trades mid-career, including skilling up and learning, as well as the issue of low wages, unstable schedules, and scarce benefits. For reference, I'm making $25 an hour, and the master carpenter makes $40. So if he's an apprentice and making $25 an hour, I'd say he's doing pretty well, but he's also in the Bay Area, which has the country's highest cost of living, right?
Yeah.
I love the work, but it definitely comes at a significant financial sacrifice that can be hard to stomach. Commentary on the wage and benefits issue, as well as advice on opportunities to step up my learning and self-teaching options for millennials without homes to practice on, would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Well,
You gotta tap into some friends and family who are looking to have some work done and like you enough that they will accept some questionable results occasionally. That's really how you learn.
so you're saying just stick with it and keep building.
You have to, and you have to read and watch as many articles as you can, watch as many videos as you can, learn from people who are doing it, and don't give up the job where you're working as an apprentice, because you're going to learn from
way more.
You're going to learn so much by going house to house and seeing the way
Real
things.
projects are the real learning.
Are there formal apprenticeships out there? Because he's
Probably
talking
not.
about, yeah.
Oh, come on. In the Bay Area?
I would
I'm sure there's a
imagine.
huge union.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
California. There's got to be.
Sure, if you
huge-
go the union route.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And then you do that, and then
Then
they're
you get
basically
benefits?
educating you. They're paying you benefits. You're going to be making way more than $25 an hour. You're going to be paying into your retirement system. You're going to get a nice pension when you're done.
Yeah.
But
But you're talking about going commercial or no?
I don't know what they have out
Yeah.
there in terms of, if you're able to do residential doing that. But
I think, and I'm speculating largely, but I think there's a better opportunity for union work in the residential sector in California than probably pretty much anywhere excepting Chicago.
Okay.
yeah. And he says 30, like that's mid-career. That's young.
That's pretty
You're
young.
still
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is hard to take a hit. So he was making probably twice as much money doing data analysis
Yeah.
and probably miserable. But
You'll get there. You'll figure it out.
to be miserable?
No,
or-
you'll make you'll yes, that too. No, you just gotta trust the path. Guess.
and you say it's by doing it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. You have to see a lot of different situations. That's how you come across the body of knowledge. You have to have
I was going
hit
to
a lot of problems.
suggest too, if you want to, and it's hard to want to when you are a carpenter or apprentice the rest of the week, but on the weekends go to a Habitat affiliate. There's one in the Bay Area. You're going to likely learn from some pretty smart people, and they are there to teach, unlike some of your colleagues and coworkers you'll come across. And at a minimum, you're going to learn from other people to broaden your knowledge base.
Right.
And I'd say the same as Justin to do it. What do you think?
Yeah. Why not? If you can find people who are willing to give you money to scrub their
learn?
house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Use
And I
my
would
bit.
say don't ever assume you know everything. That's the biggest problem in the
Never.
industry, because you can't.
Yeah. You never will. We don't.
You can't. And because
We're
stuff
not even
changes
close.
too. Yeah, the products change, the projects change. That every project is a new learning experience.
Yep. Yep.
What do you say, Jeff?
Yeah, you got to get out there, and you learn more when things go wrong than you do when things go right.
Absolutely.
also true.
You have to make mistakes. You have to face problems, because it's never going to be like the textbook in real life.
I say that becoming a good carpenter is making all the mistakes until you've made them all, but there's always more to be made.
Yes.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Justin, and Jeff for joining me. Thanks to all of you for listening. Remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. We had some great comments recently. Thank you all for that. And those of you who are listening and haven't done that, I'm going to guilt you into it, hopefully this time. Happy building and keep craft alive.